Crossing Europe. Das internationale Filmfestival in Linz war auch dieses Jahr ein Ort der Begegnung für Filmkünstler und Filmkünstlerinnen. 5 Artists waren live zu Gast bei Radio Fro für die Sondersendung Kino für die Ohren im Kultur- und Bildungskanal. Am dritten Tag war Boris Bakal zu Besuch und erzählte über seinen Film Vitic, ein Dokumentarfilm über die Renovierung eines kroatischen Kulturerbes und der Kampf, der damit folgte.
English right now. That's because I have a very special guest with me today in the studio, Boris Bakal. Hi, thanks for coming.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Martin. Nice to meet you.
We're going to talk about your movie today that's screening on Crossing Europe today and on Saturday. And that is Vitic Dances or Vitic Pleše. It's a documentary feature which has been awarded in the London Indie Film Festival 2024 for Best Directing, Best Producer, and Best Documentary Feature, and also won the Grand Prix winner on the Erasmus Film and Histories Festival on 2024. Congrats, first of all. Would you like to tell the audience a bit about your documentary and how it came about?
Yeah. I mean, I'm basically a theater director and theater actor and intermedia artist, you can call it, because I work in many different media. But during my theater and multimedia intermedia artist career, I started filming the project because I work a lot in urban settlements, in shared spaces, and I deal a lot with movie education for professionals, for children, for elderly, especially on the conceptual filmmaking and documentary filmmaking. And so, yeah, I did some works before, but mainly I worked on a web. I produced it for my web page and things like that. And yeah, in 20 years ago, I just fell in love in one building. I wanted to do a festival dedicated to this building and to invite artists from all over the world. The artists I worked already in many countries on different urban projects and community art projects and kind of local activism. Yeah, how to, let's say, change things in a city areas and to use resources which are given. So I wanted to create some kind of festival for that, but then I get into the building because I was invited to the party. and then it started to be a life story in a way, which lasted for 20 years.
Yeah, the movie is covering quite the time span, starting from 2003, if I might assume.
Yeah.
And being released 20 years later. It's quite a long story. When in those 20 years did you decide you're going to make a documentary, like you're going to document this fully in a movie?
I started documenting the events from the early beginning, but the moment I really realized that I had already a documentary movie was in 2007, so 4 years later. And it was then invited as a kind of rough cut, as some kind of pitching project at Zagreb Docks in 2007. Yeah, and it was already got a lot of interest all over Europe because people like it. People like the way how it was already presented. And
organizing and managing the restoration of that building, which documentary is about, was visibly exhausting for not only the inhabitants, but also you as a person, which can be seen in the documentary. To kind of counteract that, do you have suggestions or do you have like ways that helped you ease this stress, trying to bring a community together?
You know, when I started doing the project, because it was a community art project, if I knew that it will last so long, I will probably kill myself. or throw it from the balcony of 10th floor of the building, because I don't know. It was not my plan to, but I'm very stubborn, and when I'm up to something, I want to finish it. That's I think that's the only way if you want to do something, you have to do it really properly. I worked a lot in local areas. I lived in Italy for almost 10 years, and I worked a lot in Bologna and Rome and Alessandria and Trieste, and so I oftenly tried to avoid kind of get to interfere if I'm not ready to give everything for that, So I was ready to give everything. So I said, okay, now I'm gonna do it. So I thought we will finish in 5 to 6 years, but it took so much because we had a very unpleasant mayor at that time, who was always trying to he was connected with building mafia, the mafia who are into the building business, and so they always want to get percentage on everything which is done. Because this project, it was obvious that they can't steal the money so easily. They did it, as you saw it in a movie. At one point, they tried at least, but it was not. It was not easy, So I forced them all the time to because I was creating both some kind of environment in a house, because of course the people who live there, they just want to live there. They just want to live peacefully. They just wanted to live happily there, and maybe not to know each other, because that's the beauty of the urban settlement. You can be anonymous, you can be whatever you want. You can just meet maybe in a corridor or in elevator and say hello, but you don't have to mingle with the people, But when when these kind of things start to happen, and you have to mingle with the people, you have to deal with them, So they didn't know that the building has a value. And because of this, as a cultural value, because it was made by famous architect, of modernist era of socialism. He built about 150 buildings all over Yugoslavia and abroad. And he was quite famous already in 70s and 80s. And recently he was presented in MoMA within the towards the Utopia. I don't know how was it called, the exhibition at MoMA. So he was quite important person. But he died in '86. People forgot him, and people was just living there. But I found that the building has a value. I helped them to list it, the building, as a culture monument, because it was not listed as a culture monument, and I helped them to do something with this building. But I was not ready for sure that it will last so long. Yeah.
The community of co-inhabitants, throughout the movie, they seem to form a stronger and stronger bond. What role did you feel did you have in that development?
I mean, it's kind of you can call it manipulation also. Or directing. It was a huge 20 years theater show, if you want to be ironic, But you have to find the kind of a commune denominator, the common interest, something which will help them all. Which even the people who, because what struck me when I arrived into the building was that it looked like a world with all this kind of misunderstanding. Especially now, it's even. I mean, today this movie looks more like a world we are living now than it was when I started. But I saw the building as kind of dynamics of the inhabitants, how they behave against each other or together in some, or creating groups, interest groups, of course. It was kind of. So I wanted first of all to show them all, So to expose them all, to make them visible, and you do these things with kind of law of attractions, yeah. So you put one thing somewhere, and they come to see what it is, and then you expose them there. You expose them, and you ask them, so why you don't work together, or why you work together, or things like that. So it was really I my main role was mediating, yeah, because I starting learning mediation when the war started in Yugoslavia in 91, and I was taught by uh, German, Austrian, American, San Salvador, from Chile, mediators who were very often, working in the local areas between the confronted interest groups, and so I did a lot of workshops, like how to the people who had really contrast, which they don't want to listen each other, how to make them listen, how to make them at least starting understanding that maybe there are some common points.
I think this is a great talent should that should not only be used in construction, but also in larger politics and communities throughout. Because communication is something that your documentary shows really well. The communicating basis of all the inhabitants was like basically none. Saying they got documentaries as phrases like, "Now you cannot deal with these people; they won't listen." One most harrowing phrase, which you alluded to, was that they tried to form clans, like the tenth floor people and the fifth floor people,
Yeah, of course, of
to
course.
support their differing
But it's a
interests.
question of perspective, it's a question where do you live in a city, because the center of our world is our bed, so we measure the world according to our bed or toilet, if you want, so how far is something from my toilet or my kitchen or my bed, and
Yeah.
so if I have to go to the neighbor and ask for sugar, I will probably go in my pajama, yeah? I will not dress, maybe. I will maybe be half nude, or I will go in some kind of sportswear to the shop down there, But if I'm going to the radio, like now, I will dress nicely with this tuxedo I'm wearing now. Of course, I'm not wearing tuxedo, but I'm joking. But when you are coming from far from your house, and you want people to believe in something you want to tell, then you change. So yeah, it's a question of perspective also, because when you go to the local bar in your neighborhood, they already know what you are going to order. Yeah, so it's a question of perspective. If you are looking for the ground floor, the building of 20 or 30 or 50 floors, you don't care who is living up there. You don't care because you will probably never go there. Maybe they will invite you. Maybe they will never invite you. So for you, the building doesn't have 100 floors or 10 floors. It has just one floor. Yeah.
I see the architects try to remedy this by building communal locations, which also the architect of this building tried to do, the communal terrace, for example. Why do you think that failed in bringing tenants together?
But already, first of all, the idea of solidarity somehow was failed. In the idea which, as a society of just, which socialism and as a far future communism wanted to do, finished in what we can see, yeah, that there is no much solidarity left, that even when pandemic came, we saw it in Europe, the country were not helping each other, or they were helping because of interest, so and it's very good for business, of course. The kind of chaos is good for business, because if you have to do something to take care of yourself, then your need is chaotic. So I can present you many different things. So that's how it works, That's how it works. The idea of modernist architecture was to create solidarity, to create the flats which are more equal, even maybe not in the square meters, but they have a same commodity, they same kind of value in a sense of the view, the quality of living, but it failed. The idea. Of course, it's a lot of community which are working all over the world on that again, but it's not a common idea.
Well, I think you presented an alternative with this documentary, which is a mediation through art and common interests, which I find very, very inspiring. I have a last question for you, which is a bit of a long one, but it does interest me. It's because the format of the story you're trying to tell. You're a multimedia artist. We've already talked. You're in theater. You're working for radio. You're doing all these kinds of different mediums to communicate your ideas. How did the documentary feature, like what benefits or what restrictions did that medium or this format give you when trying to tell the story of this building?
When you are watching this movie, because it's almost like a fiction, we had 5 versions of this movie because we were editing this movie for 5 years. Martin Siedler, who is co-author of the movie, and me, and so we also were thinking that it's in one moment that it needs some kind of context why I'm doing this, that it's not the only project, because I started renovating buildings when I was 25. I started with one factory in Zagreb, but because of the war, it was never done. I already got money, I already got permits, things like that. And probably now, after almost 30 years, it will be done by somebody else, of course. Then I did it, the second trial was in Alessandria in Italy. Then in Bologna, we did a restoration of Le Corbusier's pavilion, Esprit Nouveau, because we were working 5 years on that, and then finally the architects and restorators, they did it. So we wanted to make a context, but it didn't fit it into the story. So we had to leave the story as it is, the story of the building, the story of me within the building, the story of inhabitants, and of course a lot of things we had to shorten, because sometimes you had the beautiful scene of 2 hours and you know that you have only 2 or 3 minutes time to show it, because it's restrictions. We were thinking at one moment to maybe make a serial, maybe 6 episodes of half an hour, so to make it 3 hours, and then probably it will have a much more also political context and artistic context, and also because we did a lot. We did exhibitions about inhabitants. We gave them kind of quality that, for instance, in the same time, I don't know, Reagan did something in United States, the boy was born on the 3rd floor, So to make the big history into small history, to create some kind of world map that this building, because that's important for them, that's important that they got a child, or somebody died, or somebody got a job, lost job, they got money to restore the flat or to repair something, So we wanted to give them a value of being there and being some kind of part of the world in the same time.